Well, tonight you can see this is still a very active crime scene here behind me. Police still have a good portion of the property surrounding this home taped off as they continue to search for evidence. And this is a pretty big property. It's also a very big home here. Police are saying very little about the victim in this shooting, other than the fact that it was a male and he was attending this post-prom party last night and into the early morning hours today here on Bloomington Road. This house was rented on Airbnb for this party. We actually received a flyer that was sent out on social media inviting people to come to this party and charging a cover charge of $10. We're told at one point in the evening there was well over 100 students at this party. The shooting happened just after 4 o'clock this morning, and at the time police say there were still more than 60 people in the home. By the time police and paramedics arrived, everyone had fled except for the victim and the person who was renting the house. Now, paramedics pronounced the victim dead on the scene about a half an hour after the shooting. Police then arrested two teenage boys hiding in some bushes about a kilometer away from where we are right now over on Bethesda Road. Police also found a gun nearby when they made that arrest. They say the two teens were knocking on doors on Bethesda Road and asking residents if they would call a taxi for them. We spoke to one neighbor today who lives just steps away from where those two teens were arrested.
I can't believe it's so close. It's just unbelievable how close things actually are. Stouffville's quite a good community, and we're proud to live here. But seeing all this, it really makes you think that you got to be aware of what's going on all the time.
Now, those two teens were in court today. They're facing numerous gun charges, but at this point, they have not been charged in connection with the shooting that happened in this home early this morning. Police are, at this point, trying to determine if there is a connection.
At this point, it's far too early to tell if these two scenes or these two incidents are connected to each other. However, given the reasonably close proximity to it, obviously our homicide investigators are looking in to see if there are any possibility that these two incidents are in fact connected.
Yeah, and I can tell you just a few hours ago, the police came in here with the K-9 unit. They've been searching the property here, and they also are searching the area between this property and where those two teens were arrested. It appears they are looking for evidence, maybe anything that may have been left behind, trying to determine if those two teens were in fact at this party last night and if they fled along with the other 60-plus people who were in the house at the time, and if there is any other evidence between this home and that area where they arrested. Again, Dwight, they did find a gun nearby when they arrested those two teens, and they are still trying to determine if they had anything to do with this shooting.
Greg Ross reporting live from York Region tonight. Thank you, Greg. Some Toronto families could be on the hook for thousands of dollars in extra childcare costs. The city says the provincial government is cutting nearly $85 million from childcare services, and that will mean thousands of childcare spaces will be lost. Alicia Son joins us live now. And Ali, both the city and parents you spoke to today are obviously worried about this.
Absolutely. The city is sounding the alarm here because, according to their calculations, 6,166 childcare spaces are at stake. The province, though, says it doesn't have to be like that. These cuts can happen, but it's up to the municipalities to make it work. In the middle of this, though, are parents, their children, but today they had backup at City Hall from council.
We have been on over a dozen wait lists for childcare spaces since I was 5 months pregnant. That was nearly 2 years ago. We, like so many other families in the city, do not have grandmothers or extended family members who could help us out on a full-time basis. I want to live in a city and a province where we value our youngest children, where we support our families, and providing funding that we know will make our communities flourish. Thank you.
We should have been able to have discussed these things well in advance before it sort of was pronounced upon us in the fashion that it has. We're all here. And so I think that there should be a narrative approach about discussing on what it is that they're hoping to achieve in their proposal and how that would actually impact the very service we provide to our residents.
Would we like a less optimistic perspective?
Go for it, Mike.
The Premier and the provincial government have consistently turned their back on the city when we've asked to stay at the table with us. Just like the fight that we had about schools, where they cut school funding, this is that continued attack on our social services that impact the most vulnerable.
For centres like mine that has predominantly full-fee families, those parent fees do not cover the true cost of operating childcare, and those fees will hike.
The province is saying cuts? More like cutting the fat at the administrative level of childcare.
When they say administration, it's things like, subsidy officers with the city who help administer childcare subsidy for families, right? It's the person that you talk to try to figure out, how you're going to be able to afford childcare.
It seems to be how politics happens. There's a lot of, people will say what they think people want to hear, and I feel like we're not any further in doing what's best for children.
How hopeful are you that this can get resolved?
Well, talking is the first thing that you need to do in any dispute, and hopefully you can come to an agreement. We teach our kids to talk when they're young throughout their problems, so let's show them a good example.
All right, Ellie, we've heard from parents, we've heard from the city. So what is the province saying about all of this today?
Well, Dwight, today the province put up Stan Cho of the Treasury Board to answer to all of this. Have a listen.
We need to work together. This is, we have so many great things going on in our city and in the province that we should be having constant communication on. And so, I tell the city that there are absolutely efficiencies to be found. Here, the hardworking bureaucrats, have been finding those efficiencies in the Ministry of Education. This is a partnership. And at the end of it, we need to keep in mind that despite your different political beliefs, we have a massive debt in this province that is costing over $30 million a day in just interest payments.
So you'll remember that the province introduced a childcare tax rebate in the most recent budget. And the theory with that is that parents will be able to hold on to more of their income. So essentially they'll be able to afford the ability to choose the childcare that best suits their family's needs. Now, we crunch the numbers ourselves on our website. And if these cuts do go through and happen, parents will be affected across all income levels. To read more on our coverage and to see a little bit of how that breaks down, check out our website at cbc.ca/Toronto. Send it back to you for now, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Provincial leaders from across the country had their eyes on a Saskatchewan court today. It was weighing whether a federally imposed carbon tax is constitutional, and it made its ruling this afternoon, a split decision in favor of Ottawa. Here's reaction first from the Environment Minister and then Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe.
So, we're very pleased with this decision, but I think more importantly, we would be pleased if Conservative politicians joined us, that it no longer became a partisan issue to take serious action on climate change, and because that, everyone will be better off. All Canadians will be better off.
Obviously, I'm disappointed with today's ruling, but it is only one step in the battle against the Trudeau carbon tax. We will be closely reviewing today's ruling, and it will be appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Several other provinces are also in a fight with Ottawa over the carbon tax. They include Ontario, Manitoba, and New Brunswick. And Alberta's new Premier, Jason Kenney, says scrapping his province's carbon pricing plan is high on his agenda. And the fight against the carbon tax was one of the key topics of discussion at a morning meeting between Alberta's new Premier and his Ontario counterpart. And afterwards, Jason Kenney made it clear they're just two among a growing rank of provincial allies.
We're going to have a great alliance between Alberta and Ontario, joined by Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, and now Prince Edward Island. Got a majority of provinces and territories who want jobs, who want to get our energy to markets, who oppose the job-killing carbon tax. So that's why I'm here in the very first week as Premier of Alberta.
During their hour-long meeting, Kenney also thanked Doug Ford for his ongoing support for pipelines. And Kenney told the Ontario Premier he appreciates his open for business message, a mantra used by both premiers. Later, Kenney delivered that same message to Bay Street leaders during a speech at the Canadian Club. After meeting Jason Kenney, Premier Ford headed to Muskoka to see the flooding damage there for himself. And although there are signs of relief in some parts of the region, other areas are still seeing rising levels of water. Magda Gabasalassi has more now from Bracebridge.
The yellow caution tape says it all. Frida and Alan's flooded home in Bala is too dangerous to enter.
On Thursday, we had dinner with friends in our dining room, and as we often do. And Friday morning, the water was seeping through the floor. By Sunday, we had a foot of water in our whole living space.
We moved up the rugs and the carpets, and then it just kept coming up. And the surprising thing for me is that in the record flood 6 years ago, it never came through our floorboards.
Midweek, the city issued an order not to allow anyone into the home. Since then, water levels in the township's lakes have gone up.
And so right now you can see that the river is at the same level as the windows. This is very scary because all those big logs you see that have washed up on our lawn could wash in through the windows.
Meanwhile, in Bracebridge, some relief. Water levels in the Muskoka River are starting to go down. NDP leader Andrea Horvath came to see the damage.
We've seen everything from really quite isolated houses that are in very bad shape to little patches of, more density in terms of numbers of people. So everything from, the isolated home where people, are kind of on their own to these little kind of more communal spaces, if you want to call them that. And it's just everything's underwater.
She also called out the Ford government for cuts to flood planning programs. Back for his second visit to the area, Premier Ford stressed his government is here to help. After municipal leaders called for changes to the watershed management plan, he agreed to set up a task force.
And we sit down right away and get things moving, get all the ministries involved, but most importantly, let's get the stakeholders involved, the areas that were affected through Muskoka region.
While politicians talk about how to prevent this from happening again, it's clear the road to recovery for residents affected by the flooding will be long. Magda Gebre-Celeste, CBC News, Bracebridge.
And Ottawa is promising relief for flood victims. Today, the feds pledged $2.5 million to the Red Cross for the recovery effort.
Once the peak passes, there is also a long and challenging return, cleanup, restoration, and recovery process.
The money will help the Red Cross provide services like lodging, food, first aid, and mental health support. The funding will also help families reunite. About 1,000 Canadian Armed Forces are deployed across the province to ensure residents in flooded areas are safe and to help with the flood mitigation process. Some of the most beautiful parts of the province, lots of folks living on those lakes. Another dark and dreary one out there, Nick. Relief on the way, you said, though, right?
Yeah, there is some relief on the way. Sorry, I have to apologize. I'm losing my voice toward the end of the week. My wife says I talk too much, but I don't know. I'll leave that to you to decide. Yeah, still some cloud cover out there right now. We're expecting to see some drizzle, though, through tonight and fog developing as well across the GTA. Good news is, though, no big heavy rainfall expected coming up over the next few days. So here's what it looks like. Just a band of cloud cover essentially, but all of this slowly pushing south and east. So that rainfall that we're seeing down to the southwest is going to miss the GTA. The most we're going to see is just a little bit of drizzle through tonight. Temperature-wise, we're sitting at 10, 11 degrees. If that feels a bit cool to you, you wouldn't be wrong. Average temperatures, 16 degrees for this time of year. 11.4 is actually what we hit for today. Our overnight lows, if it's of any consolation, have actually been slightly above seasonal. Here's a look at the forecast going in through the next 24 hours. 6 degrees, light drizzle, fog for the morning. Then it sort of dries up. Generally cloudy day for tomorrow. We're going to have a hard time getting to 14 degrees, though, just because of a bit of a light breeze off of the water and the cloud cover. But Sunday is looking a lot better. I'll have full details coming up.
All right, save that voice, buddy. We'll check back with you later. Thank you, Nick. Floodwaters have been receding, but in Quebec alone, almost 11,000 people are still out of their homes, including many along the Ottawa River in the National Capital Region, and a Thibodeau is there.
So even though I'm standing in water way above my knees, the good news is that the water levels in Ottawa-Gatineau have peaked. And let me show you, in some places they even have receded. If you can see these trees over there, you can see the wet spot. That's where the peak level was. It's now gone down quite significantly, and for people in this neighborhood, seeing that just gives them that little bit of hope.
That speed is really good for us.
and we able to continue and have a good humor. You know, you have to take all these garbage and everything. You have to clean like the garbage. Forget it. Everything it's upside down over there. That's mean it's lots of work. That's mean forget it. Your summer.
It'll still take at least 2 weeks before these waters completely recede, and then homeowners start the cleanup process. There were 1.5 million sandbags put around homes in Ottawa-Gatineau to shore them up, so those have to be cleaned out. But for some homeowners, they just can't take another flood.
I'm not staying, yeah. If it's possible, we're not going to stay. My wife doesn't want to see water anymore.
While flooding like this has happened twice in 3 years, what I've found from all of the people we have spoken to is that they're extremely resilient, and part of that reason are all of their neighbors who have helped them, their family, as well as the volunteers. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Gatineau, Quebec.
It was a hard life. They like use electrical torture, and they broke his hand, teeth.
And then they killed him. The man's brother was one of dozens executed by the Saudi Arabian government last month. Now he's calling on Canada to stop the sale of arms to the regime, while he says he knows they won't, coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
You look really pretty.
You look really pretty too.
Charlotte Field, the most powerful woman on earth, flirted with you tonight. She actually seems to like me.
She's amused by you like you would be a small puppy.
Charlize Theron has played everything from a serial killer to a spy. In her new movie, she plays someone in a relationship with Seth Rogen. Long Shot is a new rom-com set during a U.S. presidential race. Film reviewer Eli Glasner is here. Eli, Theron is running for president. Rogen is a bumbling journalist. They're always making fun of us in these movies. How do these two get together?
I take it as a compliment, you know? He's a very charismatic individual, Seth Rogen, Canadian. Politics, as you said. So the setup is she plays Charlotte Field. Charlotte is someone who's very ambitious, very driven. She's the Secretary of State, but that's not enough. She wants to be the next president. The thing is, her speeches, they lack a little something. So they're looking at someone, a writer, to punch up her material. Enter Fred Flarsky. Is that not a name? Fred
Great movie name.
Has to be Seth Rogen, of course. So there's your Flarsky. And Flarsky has a history with Charlotte because there you go. Many years ago, she was the babysitter. Something happened that evening. I cannot tell you about it because kids are watching. And he's really hoping that she doesn't remember. So there they are at a party. And then she notices him. Let's take a look for ourselves.
I can't shake this feeling that we know each other.
We do.
We do?
Picture me, I guess, maybe like 20 years younger, but like this.
Flarsky?
Yeah.
What are you doing these days?
I'm a journalist.
You're a great writer, but sometimes you're a little too much.
I don't think I am too much. I actually think I'm the perfect right portion.
It's really nice to see you again.
All right, so they kind of have a moment, and then, yeah, major faceplant. I'm talking like viral-worthy YouTube charting faceplant, but he's made an impression, and not just on her face. Now, I know there's some skepticism out there. You think, Seth Rogen, Charlize, come on, Eli. Never underestimate the power of Boys to Men. Take a look.
We grew up next door to each other. He's really funny, super smart, and he knows me. You get me, Fred.
I totally get you.
So she gets him. What's interesting is it's actually Flarsky that's standing in his own way. He doesn't have the self-confidence. He's thinking, I'm not worthy for this kind of woman. So let me show you a scene where his buddy, Lance, is trying to bring up that self-confidence as he's about to get picked up. Take a look.
Were you like dating the Prime Minister of Canada?
No.
No.
No, it's weird.
I know this great little place not too far from here.
Ooh.
It's called Mini Bar, and it's in my room.
You asked.
No, hey, I'm not. I've hooked up with my fair share of world leaders too.
So that's not the clip I was aiming for, but that's okay because you got to see how this movie actually, there's some competition for Flarsky, and it's a Canadian Prime Minister character. In this universe, the Prime Minister is a bachelor who's on the prowl. Somewhat kind of cartoonish character for that character.
Was he based on our own Prime Minister?
I would not say that. I would not. Very loosely, very loosely. Let's be careful.
Certainly no lack of talent there, but what about Rogen and Theron's, like, their chemistry in this movie as a couple? Because that's what makes or breaks a rom-com.
You could power a small town with their chemistry. I mean, I think it works. If I had to summarize this movie, it's Knocked Up meets Dave. You remember the old Kevin Kline film? That's what this is. Very funny, just a little political. And what I love about it is how it actually inverts the male-female relationship. I mean, here it's Charlize Theron. She's the one on top. She's in control. She is very precise. She is very driven. She is worried about impressions because she's a female politician, so everyone's scrutinizing her. And the wild card here is Flarsky, freaking Flarsky, who not only realized he's out of his league, but he's a liability. Now, everybody knows that Seth Rogen can do that bro-friendly kind of humor, but I think what might surprise you is just how funny Charlize Theron is. I mean, she is getting down there. She is having fun. There's a nightclub scene that is hilarious. And so it's a feel-good rom-com with two movie stars. It's kind of a throwback. It's got humor. It's got heart and even a little hope for politics.
Seems
Naive,
like he
maybe.
likes it, folks.
4 stars out of 5.
You're giving a rom-com 4 stars,
Hey,
Eli?
I have a heart. Occasionally it beats, and it does for this one.
All right, Seth is Canadian. I'm going to watch that one. Thank you, Eli.
You're welcome.
4 stars, eh,
4
buddy?
stars. I liked it. It's funny.
Ready?
It may seem like a fun ride on Canada's Wonderland new roller coaster, the Yukon Striker, but for this rider, it has special meaning. Meet John Striker. He's the man in the black jacket and blue jeans there. He's also the MP for Mount Lawrence Southern Lakes in the Yukon. And if you haven't caught on yet, the politician feels like the Yukon Striker is made for him because he's from the Yukon and his last name is Striker.
Ever since they named the roller coaster the Yukon Striker, I've been watching it as it gets built and watching those first test rides, and I'm very excited. I'll just get my stomach back, but that was amazing. That was super scary, wild, kind of like the Yukon, and just completely thrilling. I'm hoping I can go back and go on the front.
Yeah, you do that, buddy. The Yukon Striker opened up to the public today, so regular thrill seekers whose last names aren't Striker can also join in on the fun. According to Canada's Wonderland, it's the longest, fastest, and highest roller coaster of its type. I'm not going to ride.
At first, I thought it was just a practical joke, like, you know, one of those things that coaches would pull sometimes. But as soon as we realized that it was real, the whole team was just devastated.
High school rugby was canceled across Nova Scotia after a high number of injuries, including concussions. Then those who loved the game protested against what they called a snap decision, and it looks like their try was good. That story coming up. But first,
when police arrived at this building behind me this morning, they found one man dead, another man injured. What happened? That's what investigators are still trying to piece together. I'm Kelda Yoon in the Steeles and Islington area. Coming up, I'll tell you what we know so far.
After a mass execution of 37 men by the Saudi government, relatives of 2 men that were killed are speaking out. Family members are claiming asylum here and are calling on the government, our government that is, to stop the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia. Jamie Strachan spoke to the families.
I saw the news.
Ali Al-Aradi knew his brother Ahmed Hussein was in great danger, locked away in a Saudi jail for the last 5 years. But the end was sudden.
It's getting worse and worse.
He says his brother was jailed for bringing attention to the regime's harsh treatment of the Shia minority and tortured for years before being executed.
It was a hard life. They use electrical torture, and they broke his hand, teeth.
Mohammed Al-Ahmad also lost a loved one. His cousin Abdullah Salman El Azray was also arrested for protesting Shia living conditions.
He was 19 years, so he has nothing in his life. He just started. He want to build his self.
Saudi Arabia's state press agency said the executions were related to breaking up terrorist cells. Amnesty International condemned the executions, saying a majority were convicted after sham trials and confessions extracted through torture. The families of those killed say the executions are another reason for Canada to cancel its multi-billion-dollar deal to sell Saudi Arabia hundreds of armored vehicles. Too much economic and political risk, experts say.
I don't think the Canadian government is willing to risk losing 2,000 to 3,000 jobs in London in an election year.
Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland was asked about the executions.
It is a cruel and inhumane punishment. We are particularly concerned given that some of those executed were minors when they were arrested.
That might not sway Saudi Arabia. Remember, the regime weathered international condemnation for the brazen assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
I think the Canadians, frankly, don't see much prospect of changing the regime's behavior.
The government does say it's reviewing its arms deal with Saudi Arabia. Small comfort to loved ones of those executed. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Homicide detectives are looking into the death of a man near Steeles and Islington. Police say they received information that led them to check out a warehouse in the area. When they arrived, they found 2 men, one of whom was dead. Kelda Ewan is on the scene for us right now. Kelda, what else do we know about what happened up there today?
Well, Dwight, there are still a few officers on scene trying to figure that out. I'm outside the warehouse at Millwick and Milvan Drives in the Steeles and Islington area. Now, forensic investigators, they're still inside combing for evidence. Police, however, they have remained quite tight-lipped. All they will say is that they are continuing to investigate a suspicious death. Police say that they were called to this warehouse at around 9 o'clock this morning after receiving some information. They would not go into detail about what that information was. And when they went inside, they found 1 man dead, another one injured. They said based on those injuries, they believe that it was a suspicious death. Now, the warehouse lies in the middle of an industrial area, and it's currently for lease. Now, I did speak to one woman who works at a business next door, and she says the building used to be a winery and that it has been vacant for quite some time. She also said that she often smelled marijuana in its vicinity. I also spoke to another person who frequents the bar behind this building, and he said the same thing. He said there is often a strong smell of marijuana coming from the building and that he always believed that it was a grow-up. Now, police, meanwhile, they would not comment on the matter. They have also not revealed how the man died, and they would not say whether they are looking for any suspects. Now, a few hours ago, they had said they will be releasing more information tonight, but so far we are still waiting. Send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Kelda. And Toronto police say 1 week into their gun buyback program, they've received more than 500 guns. So far, 349 long guns have been turned in. Each one was bought back for $200, and 155 handguns have been bought back for $250. Each gun will be checked by police to see if they were used in a crime. But residents who turn over guns will not face a charge of possessing or unsafely storing a firearm.
Cherry blossoms aren't out just yet. They're still a few days away. I'm Natalie Nanowski, and I'll have all the places where you can check out the beautiful flowers and beat the crowds. That's coming up.
Two-time Olympic champion Caster Semenya dominated her final race just before new rules took effect that would force her to lower her testosterone levels. The 800-meter track race took place in Qatar. Semenya's career has been controversial because she is believed to have intersex traits, which means she does not conform to traditional definitions of male or female. And the Athletics Federation says she has an unfair advantage because of her higher testosterone levels. After today's race, going forward, she must now medically reduce the hormone in her body. When asked if she would comply with the new rules, she answered with a simple, hell no. A ban on rugby in Nova Scotia schools appears to be short-lived. Yesterday, the province's Schools Athletic Federation called game over, citing insurance injury data. But late this afternoon, Nova Scotia's Minister of Education told CBC News he's ordered the sport be reinstated immediately. David Burke has more.
This wasn't the quiet luncheon to celebrate sport that the Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation had planned. Yesterday, it canceled all rugby games due to the high number of player injuries. Today, about 200 students gathered to push for that decision to be reversed.
Rugby really helps girls with their body image, and it shows us that every person matters in this game because there's a position for literally everybody, every body type, every speed that you have. There's literally a position for everybody, and it empowers so many girls.
Jason Varon Stewart agrees with that. He's a rugby coach with King's Edge Hill School.
That this is one of the few avenues in which girls are encouraged and their strength is celebrated. They're encouraged to be strong. They're encouraged to be tough. And I coach wrestling as well, and wrestling and rugby are sports like that where if something like that is taken away from girls, it does severely limit them even more than it limits boys. And
Varon Stewart says rugby teaches people discipline, time management skills, and good cooperation. But the Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation says that doesn't matter when you consider how many students are getting injured. The Athletic Federation requested sports injury statistics covering the past 5 years. For concussions or possible concussions, the numbers showed 149 in rugby compared to just 33, 32, and 26 in hockey, football, and soccer. When it comes to overall injuries, there were 454 in rugby, more than twice the number in the other sports.
The decision of the board yesterday was that rugby is no longer on our school calendar. That's where it stays right now. To be honest, a lot would have to happen to ease our minds with regards to the safety of rugby.
The province's education minister has ordered the Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation to immediately reinstate rugby. Zach Churchill says that the federation contravened an agreement it has with his department to inform them whenever they make a decision like this. He also says that the federation is to work with his department to review the sport's safety. David Burke, CBC News, Halifax.
1, 2, 3, 4, our future's what we're asking for. These are not please. The trees are not please. Go ahead. Ho, ho.
A large group of students marched to Nathan Phillips Square from Queen's Park for a national climate strike. The Fridays for Future event was started last year by Swedish teen Greta Thunberg. She was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize last month for her work with climate activism. Today's protest drew hundreds of people, all demanding action from all levels of government.
We cannot ignore that we are seeing deadly heat waves, record-breaking flooding, South Africa rapidly running out of water and species going extinct. They cannot ignore us, the thousands of young people flooding the streets, demanding climate action and trying to save our future.
The event was part of a national climate strike with over 40 communities across Canada participating. Okay, so Nick is here with us, but he is losing his voice. Are you going to have to whisper the forecast, buddy?
You know what? When I came into work today,
my voice was fine, and then throughout the day, it's checking out for the weekend.
Oh, no.
Yeah, anyway, we're going to get through this. Just bear with me here. A little bit of drizzle tonight, fog for tomorrow morning, folks, and then Sunday, really, if you've got outdoor plans, it's going to be the nicest of the days. But it is going to be a dry weekend in the forecast. Rain showers have now moved off. We had about 15, maybe 20 millimeters of rain in some areas right around the Golden Horseshoe last night and into this morning. Behind it, this wave of rain is slightly pushing to the south, and that means that we're going to miss the next round, but just miss the next round of rainfall. Here's a look at the forecast heading through the next couple of days. So cloud cover tonight. You saw that little bit of green that moved through there. These are your patches of drizzle. What's going to happen is just as the atmosphere cools, we're going to reach saturation, and when we get that fog, we'll probably see some drizzle forming around the area. By tomorrow, as things start to heat up, though, that's going to burn off, but we're going to have the cloud cover for the better part of the day, which is going to hinder our temperatures from really climbing. If we see any sunshine, comes in toward the late part of the day tomorrow. Sunday, there's the system that we just missed. We'll get a bit of high cloud cover from it in the morning, but by the afternoon, we're back into straight sunshine. Now, it's not going to be much in the way of winds, but what that does is kind of works against us. Through the day on Saturday and Sunday, the winds are going to be easterly through southerly, and that brings off a bit of a cooler breeze off of the lake. So if you're downtown by the water, expect temperatures only to be about 10 to 12 degrees. Away from the water, though, it'll be warmer. Right now, we're sitting at 11 degrees. As we move through tonight, temperature is back down to 6 degrees. That's where we were last night. Same story for tonight. Drizzle and fog in the forecast. That dissipates through the morning hours. Temperatures to about 14 or 15 degrees. But again, bear in mind, a bit of a struggle, especially when you're down by the lake. And that'll be a late day sort of high for us tomorrow. 19 degrees on Sunday, though. Good sunshine in the forecast there. Monday looks pretty good. Evening rain showers possible Monday. Another system moves through Tuesday, 14 degrees. And we're just barely trying to hang on to those seasonal temperatures. Dwight.
Nick Sirkovich going above and beyond for us today.
I'm
losing that voice.
Just belting out everything I've got.
Thank you, buddy. We appreciate it. The waiting game continues for news about baby Sussex. The impending arrival of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's firstborn has whipped up a frenzy of speculation in England, especially because the royals aren't talking. Thomas Digg traveled to Windsor to learn more.
Where better to toast the baby-to-be than at the Prince Harry pub? And what better to do while this town awaits a special delivery?
Baby Sussex, royal baby. Who knows? Hope it's soon.
I'm sure she does too.
Yes, I think she does.
Ever since their nearby wedding, Harry and Meghan have become the faces of Windsor, though they're known to keep a low profile here and keep locals guessing about their baby's due date.
Harry once came in here years ago. He sat at the back there.
That's it. That's the last time anyone's on.
That's it.
Harry and Meghan are staying away from the cameras that have been set up here in Windsor for several days now. They're said to be holed up in their new home, Frogmore Cottage, on the grounds of Windsor Castle, keeping the details surrounding the birth of their first child secret. Leave it to the local brewery to find just the thing to celebrate. It's the Queen's official provider of pints, after all, and they've renamed their Windsor Not beer Windsor Baby. Until, well, whenever that baby arrives.
The longer it goes on, the better, because the longer the promotion will last, and maybe we'll sell a bit more beer even.
After showing off that growing baby bump for months, the Duchess of Sussex has gone on maternity leave, and unlike her sister-in-law Kate, Meghan isn't saying where she'll give birth. The message from this royal watcher, get used to the secrecy.
He doesn't want his child to grow up being in the spotlight. I think one of the reasons that they moved to Frogmore was to have more space. You know, both Meghan and Harry felt like Kensington Palace was a bit like a goldfish bowl.
The world likely won't often get to see the royal baby, and for now, he or she is keeping even those famous parents waiting. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Windsor, England.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We will be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
0 transmissions of HIV. That's the conclusion of a major study that looked at 1,000 HIV-positive gay men. All were on specific medication. Those findings released this week have major implications for the global fight against AIDS. Health reporter Vic Adopia explains.
Unprotected sex is risky when one of the partners is HIV positive unless they're on antiretroviral drugs. That's the case for 1,000 gay couples followed in Europe, in which one man in each pair is HIV positive and on antiretrovirals. After 8 years of regular sex, no one was infected by their partner. Now, the lead research author says the findings speak for themselves.
So the very worst case scenario is that you would have to have condomless sex for 437 years before you would have the outside possibility of a transmission. So, yeah, it's conclusive.
The research supports the findings of an earlier study that followed a smaller group of gay and heterosexual couples. Preventing new HIV infections is more manageable than ever before. Uninfected people can also take steps to protect themselves if they take a particular antiretroviral drug preventatively. But all this medication is expensive, and across the country, access remains uneven, so some people still pay an amount out of pocket. That and stigma might explain why every year Canada still sees as many as 3,000 people infected by HIV. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Say, if you want to show me a really successful person, don't tell me about records or awards, money or power. If you want to show me a truly great person, show me what that person has done for someone else.
Some words of wisdom from a Toronto legend. Pinball Clemens had a few important things to say to a group of young men today. We'll have that for you after the break.
CBC Toronto is a proud sponsor of the 2019 International Film Festival of South Asia. With over 150 films in 16 languages, it's the largest South Asian film festival in North America. Join us May 9th through 20th for this 12-day spectacle, showcasing galas, stars, parties, concerts, and much more. Check out cbc.ca/Toronto for more information and click on our community page.
If your success is in your control, I want you to say, I got this. Go ahead.
The Stand Up Men's Conference celebrated 10 years today, and as you just saw, Michael Pinball Clemens was the keynote speaker. The conference aims to bring together young men and mentors to redefine the color of success. Now, if you've never heard Pinball Clemens inspire young people, you need to listen to this.
They say the average adult today looks down at his cell phone for 4 years of his life. Kind of ironic, ain't it, how these touch screens have made us lose touch? But it's no wonder in the world with so many iMacs and iPads and iPhones, so many I's, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. You see, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever before. And while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And excuse me, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but would you reclassify Facebook to what it really is? An anti-social network? Because while we may have big friend lists, too many of us are friendless all alone because relationships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home at the computer measuring self-worth by the number of followers and likes, ignoring those who actually love us. It seems we'd rather write an angry post than talk to someone who might actually hug us. Bring it in, baby. All right, all right. Help somebody on 3. 1, 2, 3. And finally, our greatest success is in growing up and making good decisions and then being able to raise somebody who looks just like you and having them be successful. That's real success, guys. It's actually growing up and knowing how to be a great dad, a great husband, and having someone who looks just like you come into this world and grow up and be success themselves. That's what I like to call finding the sweet spot. When I say sweet, would you say spot? Ready? Sweet, sweet, sweet.
You shared something with these young people today about you had humble beginnings, you had tough upbringings, but you were still able to stand up and come through that. What kind of message did you share with them? Because some of them are going through what you went through as a young person.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think the real thing here is that we are a byproduct of our decisions, not our circumstances. Your circumstances are responsible for who you are, but you're responsible for who you become. Now, when we say you're responsible for who you become, that's true, but role models and people around you are extremely important. That's why this conference is so important. The great coach John Wooden said, "No written word nor spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be. Nor all the books on all the shelves. It's who the teachers are themselves." So teachers come in many different fashions. They are coaches, right? They are teachers in the classroom who do a splendid job. Our teachers are amazing, right? But there are these other people who play those roles. So non-traditional teachers, if you will.
We got your fans. Did you guys want to say hi to Pinball?
What's up, fellas?
All right, let's you do this.
So much love. So much love. How you doing?
This is a cherry blossom sake. This is cherry blossom cheesecake.
It's almost that time of the year. The cherry blossoms have almost bloomed. Where can you find them in Toronto? And beat the crowds too? Coming up after the break. In the next few days, you'll be seeing a lot of pink around the city. The cherry blossoms about to bloom. Natalie Nanowski has more on their history and where you can check them out.
And what do they signify in Japan?
Well, it signifies the beauty, and also it's kind of ephemeral. It's so inspirational about the beauty, and many artworks, or the literatures, or food are actually inspired by cherry.
Those delicate pink or white petals create a week-long frenzy, inspiring love, art, and even fierce photo shoots. The trees were a gift from Japan in 1959.
People in Tokyo made a special donation to the people of Toronto to express their gratitude for accepting Japanese Canadians after the internment during the war. And there are 2,000 cherry trees donated to High Park.
To thank Japan for the present and to strengthen ties, Toronto's then mayor Nathan Phillips returned the favor.
We hope that the maple trees that we've sent on will flourish in your country and be a symbol of the things that should unite us together.
On this 60th anniversary, more cherry blossoms were planted in High Park and across the city.
High Park is Toronto's hot spot for cherry blossoms. It's pretty empty right now, but soon enough you're going to be standing shoulder to shoulder trying to snap that perfect floral selfie. So if you want to see the cherry blossoms but want to beat the crowds as well, here's a few places where you can do just that.
There are 15 spots in Toronto, some with entire sections of the Japanese tree. Centennial has a whopping 463 trees, Broadacres has an even 100, and Trinity Bellwoods has 70. Many restaurants are celebrating the season, like they do in Japan, with food.
This is a cherry blossom sake. It's unpasteurized, super pure, and a little bit fruity. This is cherry blossom cheesecake. In the middle is white bean paste and cream cheese, and that has cherry blossom essence in it. And on top is gelatin, and inside is salted cherry blossom flour.
You can enjoy that now, but soon you'll get to enjoy the real thing. Judging by the size of these buds, they're gonna bloom in the next few days. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.